We spend so much of our lives, really our entire lives, acting like investment bankers for a future version of ourselves.
Right. We jog, we save money, we quit smoking, we sit through these incredibly tedious classes.
All for the assumed benefit of this person we're going to become.
And yet, that future self, the one we sacrifice so much for, often looks back and just sort of shrugs and wonders if all that effort was really worth it.
That's the paradox, isn't it? We chase a feeling, a specific feeling for tomorrow, but when tomorrow comes, the reward just isn't what we predicted.
Exactly. So how can we be so systematically wrong about what actually makes us happy?
That is the question. And for this deep dive, we're looking into a field called affective forecasting. It's basically the science of how we predict our own future feelings.
And our mission here is to unpack the systematic errors our brains make when we try to imagine tomorrow, and maybe figure out why we never seem to learn from our mistakes.
To even start, you have to appreciate that thinking about later. That's a pretty new trick for the human brain.
It's a very new trick. It's really only a product of the last, 3 million years? And it's tied directly to the massive growth of one specific part of the brain.
The frontal lobe.
The frontal lobe. That's our brain's time machine.
And the evidence for this is so physical. I mean, you can look at the textbook case of Phineas Gage.
The railroad worker, yeah.
Yeah.
A champing iron goes straight through his head, destroys his frontal lobe. He survives, which is incredible. But his ability to plan, to see consequences,
It just evaporated.
completely. And it wasn't just physical damage, the damage was temporal. I mean, later cases, like a patient they call NN, he had similar massive damage.
And when they asked him what he'd be doing tomorrow,
He said his mind was, and this is a quote, blank. Like swimming in the middle of a lake. There's nothing to hold you up.
wow. So it's not just losing memory or math skills, it's the total collapse of the idea of a future. You're just stuck.
Trapped in what scientists call a permanent present. You can't worry, you can't plan, and you absolutely cannot predict how you're going to feel about anything.
Okay, so if we're going to talk about why we're so bad at predicting happiness, we first need to agree on what happiness even is. What are we actually chasing?
That's the crucial first step, because the sources are very clear that the word happiness is, let's say it's slippery. It can mean at least 3 different things.
Okay, what's the first one?
The first is emotional happiness. This is the one we think of most often. It's that subjective feeling, the delight of eating chocolate
Or seeing a grandchild smile, or getting a big promotion.
Right, that's the feeling that motivates almost everything we do. It's what Pascal was talking about when he said the will never takes the least step but to this object.
Okay, so that's one. What's number 2?
Number 2 is moral happiness, or what the Greeks called eudaimonia. This is the classical view from, say, Aristotle or Socrates. It's not a feeling.
It's about living a good life, a virtuous life.
A life well lived. Exactly. And the third type is judgmental happiness.
Which is just saying you're happy about something.
Pretty much. You tell your friend you're happy about your new job, even if, in that exact moment, you're feeling totally stressed out about the commute.
So for our purposes, for affective forecasting, we're really focused on that first one, right? Emotional happiness.
That's where the problem is. Because it's purely subjective. I can't measure your happiness and compare it to mine. There's no objective scale.
And this is highlighted so intensely by the story of the conjoined twins, Lori and Reba.
Yes. They claim to be happy, they rate their life satisfaction really high, and they say they wouldn't want it any other way.
Which immediately makes you ask, if they say their joy is an 8 out of 10, is their 8 the same as my 8?
It's a huge question. It brings up what's called the language squishing hypothesis.
Language squishing.
Right. Maybe their circumstances mean their total range of possible emotional experiences is narrower than ours. So they use the happiest word they have, an 8, to describe a feeling that someone with a, let's say, broader range of experiences might only call a 4.
Okay, so their emotional language is squished to fit their life.
That's one possibility. But what if we have it completely backward?
What do you mean?
The sources also bring up the idea of experience stretching. What if we, in our separate individual lives, have no idea what it's like to have that kind of constant, deep companionship?
So their 8 could be a feeling that's actually way deeper than anything we can even imagine.
Exactly. Maybe our language is the one that's squished. So the big takeaway for you, the listener, is that we can't even be sure the feeling we're chasing is the same quality of feeling anyone else has ever had.
And if we can't even define the target, no wonder our aim is so bad. Which gets us to the how. How does our imagination, this amazing tool, make such predictable mistakes?
Yeah, you have to think of these as cognitive biases. They're like optical illusions for your mind. Everyone falls for them.
It's a flaw number one.
Realism, or what the sources call the filling in trick. Your brain is basically a talented forger. It hates blank spaces.
In perception, you see this with the blind spot in your eye, right? Your brain just fills it in with the background, and you never notice the hole.
You never notice. And it does the same thing with memory. If you ask people about a car stopping at a stop sign that wasn't actually in a picture they saw, later on, they'll swear they remember seeing that stop sign.
Their brain just filled it in because it should have been there.
Right. So when we imagine the future, we do the same thing. We unconsciously fill in all these details, the perfect weather, the amazing food, what everyone is wearing, and then we treat those made-up details as facts, and we base our emotional prediction on them.
There's a really stark example of this with two historical deaths.
Right. You have Adolf Fischer, a reviled labor activist who died on the gallows, but he claimed it was the happiest moment of his life.
And on the other hand, you have George Eastman, the founder of Kodak. Beloved, rich, a philanthropist, and he killed himself.
Our imagination just rushes in, right? We imagine being Fischer and we predict total despair. We fail to fill in the real context, that he saw his death as a sacrifice that would directly lead to the reforms he fought for.
And for Eastman, we just focus on the success and the money. We fill in the gaps with a stereotype of a rich man's life.
We completely missed the one crucial detail. He had a chronic, incredibly painful spinal disease. We mispredict because our imagination fills in the wrong story.
Okay, so that's the filling in trick. What's flaw number two?
Flaw number two is focalism, or the leaving out trick.
Focalism. So we focus on one thing.
We focus laser-like on the main event we're imagining, say winning the lottery, and we leave out all the other stuff, all the boring, normal day-to-day life that will still be happening around it.
Like in that study with the college football fan.
Yes. Researchers asked students to predict their happiness after their team either won or lost a big game. And they drastically overestimated the emotional impact, both ways.
Why? Because they only thought about the score.
Only the score. They forgot that if they won, they'd still have to go study for that brutal chemistry final.
Which would bring them back down to earth pretty fast.
And if they lost, they'd still go out drinking with their friends, which would soften the blow. We imagine the event is the only thing that will be happening, which is just never true.
And that's why we overestimate how happy people in California are, because we only think about the sun and money, not the traffic.
Exactly. Or we underestimate the happiness of people with chronic illnesses because we only focus on the disability, and we forget they still fall in love and eat pizza and listen to music.
Okay, so filling in, leaving out, what's the third flaw?
The third one is presentism. The brain has a reality-first policy.
Reality first. Meaning what's happening right now comes first.
It completely overrides the simulation of the future. The classic example is trying to imagine how much you'll enjoy a big spaghetti dinner tomorrow while you're currently stuffed full of pretzels.
You can't do it. Your current feeling of being full just dominates the prediction.
And you mistakenly conclude you won't enjoy the dinner very much. I mean, everyone has experienced this, right?
Oh, absolutely. The grocery store experiment. If you shop when you're hungry, you buy enough food to survive the apocalypse.
And then you get home, you're full, and you look at your cart and think, what was I thinking with 3 family-sized bags of chips? Your present hunger dictated your prediction of future need.
It's presentism in action.
In the actual studies, the hungry volunteers correctly predicted they'd enjoy spaghetti the next day, but the full ones predicted they wouldn't. Their current state was the only starting point their brain could use.
So we're building our predictions for tomorrow on the emotional foundation of today, which is almost always wrong.
Almost always. And these 3 flaws are huge, but there's one last obstacle, and it's maybe the most counterintuitive one of all.
Which is?
We fail to predict our own defense mechanisms. The sources call it the psychological immune system, or PIS.
Our psychological immune system, so it protects us from emotional harm.
Yes, it's this unconscious defense system that works to find a positive, credible view of bad situations, especially bad situations you can't escape. It basically cooks the emotional books to keep you sane.
And we don't realize it's going to kick in.
We don't. And because it has very specific triggers, it creates these really strange paradoxes.
Okay, like the first one. The inescapability paradox.
This one sounds totally backward. The PIS only really gets triggered when a situation is inescapable, unavoidable, final.
There was a great study on this with photography students.
A classic. They had students choose a photograph to keep, One group was told their choice was final, they could not change their mind. The inescapable group.
And the other group was told they could swap it out later. The escapable choice.
And the result was wild. The group that was stuck with their choice, the inescapable group, ended up liking their photo significantly more.
So having no choice made them happier with their choice.
Because their PIS kicked in. It said, okay, we're stuck with this one. Let's find all the reasons why it's actually the perfect photograph. The other group's brain didn't bother because the door was still open.
So we prefer having more freedom, but that freedom can actually make us less satisfied.
It often does. Which brings us to the second paradox, intensity.
Intensity. Meaning the PIS needs a big enough problem to get going.
Exactly. It needs a sufficient threat to activate. It doesn't bother with minor annoyances.
This is the electric shock study.
Students being initiated into a club, some got mild electric shocks, some got severe shocks.
And the ones who suffered more liked the club more.
They liked it much more. The severe suffering was intense enough to trigger their PIS to find a justification. It had to be, wow, I just went through a lot of pain for this, so this club must be incredibly amazing and elite.
Whereas the mild shock was just annoying, not enough to trigger the big defenses.
It's annoying. And that explains why sometimes you might feel better after a huge, major insult than after some small, nagging slight. The big one triggers your defenses to protect you. The small one just gets under your skin.
Okay, that makes a weird kind of sense. So what's the last one?
The last one is the uncertainty paradox. And this is another one we get totally wrong. We crave explanations. We want certainty.
But certainty can kill the emotion.
You can kill the good emotions, yeah. This was shown in that study where students were given a $1 coin from the Smile Society.
Right. Some of them got a card with the coin that had this sort of fake explanation on it.
A pseudo-explanation.
Yeah.
Who were we? We're a group that encourages joy. Total nonsense. But the students who got the $1 with that explanation felt less happy just a few minutes later than the students who got no explanation at all.
The mystery was more fun.
The mystery prolonged the positive feeling. Think about a secret admirer. It's exciting. Once you explain it, the emotional buzz just fades. Our mind files it away.
But we still choose the explanation. We prefer the certainty, even when it literally makes us less happy.
We do. We're just systematically blind to how our own minds work.
So if our imagination is this flawed, if we can't account for our own immune system, is there any reliable way to know what will make us happy?
There is. There is a scientific solution. But it requires us to reject something we hold very dear about ourselves.
And that solution is?
Surrogation. Basically, the best way to predict how you'll feel is not to imagine it yourself.
But to ask someone else.
To find out how a random person, a surrogator, felt in that exact same situation. Their actual experience is a better predictor of your future experience than your own imagination is.
The potato chip study showed this, right?
Perfectly. People who were full, but were told how a hungry person rated eating chips, made a much more accurate prediction of their own enjoyment the next day than the people who just relied on their own currently full imagination.
So another person's subjective feeling is the best objective data we can get about our own future feeling.
It's far more predictive than all the details about the situation that your brain tells you are so important.
Then why don't we do it? Why do we almost universally reject this?
Because we all believe in what the sources call the myth of fingerprints.
The myth of fingerprints.
We believe we are fundamentally unique, special. We think our inner world is so complex and idiosyncratic that nobody else's experience could possibly be relevant to us.
This is why you ignore the online reviews for a restaurant, because you think, my taste is just different.
My taste is superior. Or you ignore data on how much people enjoy a certain car because you believe your relationship with that car will be unique.
We attribute other people's choices to their personality. Oh, Phil likes that class because he's a literary type.
Exactly. But when we make a choice, we attribute it to the objective, rational features of the options. I picked this class because it's practical. We reject the best data available because it threatens our sense of being special.
Which brings us to the big takeaway then. We are just bad wizards when it comes to conjuring our emotional futures.
We really are. Because of all these systematic errors, the filling in, the leaving out, the presentism, and completely failing to see our own psychological defenses coming.
So what does this all mean for us? For how we should live?
Well, it brings us right back to an insight from the mathematician Daniel Bernoulli. He said wealth is not the same as utility.
Meaning money isn't the same as happiness.
Right. What we're trying to maximize in our lives is utility, That's subjective pleasure, not just dollars in the bank or objective achievements on a resume.
But we get confused because the simple rules that apply to numbers, to prices, they just don't apply to our emotional experiences.
They don't. So we have to constantly ask ourselves, is the thing I'm chasing, the promotion, the bigger house, whatever it is it actually going to produce the emotional return that I'm predicting?
And if we're smart about it, we have to accept Bernoulli's conclusion that the value of something isn't its price. It's the utility, the pleasure it actually yields.
So the final question you have to keep asking yourself is this. Are you making choices to optimize for the utility you will actually feel? Or are you just chasing the price you think you're supposed to pay?